All right.
Trevor, this is your first time here, so I want you to start. Tell the people at home who you are, where you are, and what you do, or at least as much as you're willing to.
Yeah, of course. So if you've watched these before, you know that Ashley Rogers, you know her. That's my girlfriend. I'm Trevor Strang. So I'm a elementary school speech language pathologist. And I work at Boise Elliott Humboldt School, which it's a school that's like the last majority Black elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
But it happens to be in a neighborhood that, due to gentrification, is overwhelmingly white. So there's some interesting dynamics to go there. But yeah, so I've just been teaching through the pandemic and.
Right on. Okay. And Mike, this is your second time. For the people at home, tell us who you are, what you do, and where you are.
My name is Mike Meldon. I am here in Cincinnati, Ohio with Scott. And Scott and I, see, Scott, you didn't even notice.
Oh, look at that.
You didn't. That was for you, buddy.
Well, I appreciate that. You know what's funny is I have my John McDougal Scotch
Holy
whiskey
shit!
hat.
Wow,
Yeah.
I had that at one point. Nice.
Yeah.
See, I have a signed bottle of his. Scott and I used to work together. We bartended Friday nights together for quite a bit at Nicholson's downtown Cincinnati, and now I am a high school social studies teacher. I teach world history this year, world history and modern world issues.
No, this year. So social studies is a broad enough bucket that you change year.
So you can have a couple different licenses. Some where you are just a history teacher, but I'm what you call integrated social studies. So that means I can teach pretty much any social studies class, which psychology. I taught AP, microeconomics, macroeconomics, sociology, you name it.
Now is that taken advantage of? Are you forced to do different curriculums on a regular basis?
You know what? When you're young, they move you around quite a bit. Right. Honestly, I think I did a lot. My first 10 years, I did a lot of different classes at the high school because we offer so many. And then you kind of just find your niche. You really do. And you have seniority and you kind of just say, this is where I'd like to be. Now, obviously, sometimes there's a need and they'll move you there. But I found out where I like to be. And luckily, they're letting me have those classes. And every now and again, I like sociology. I've taught that the last few years. And it's just this year there wasn't a need for as many teachers. So I kind of lost that one. But yeah, modern world issues is my favorite.
Right on. And so you build a curriculum too. I mean, once you repeat a specific course, don't you build a curriculum that you kind of follow, you
it depends on the teacher you talk to. My team in world history, awesome group of people. They literally do the same thing every unit, and they've done it for the last, 7 or 8 years, which is great. It's not bad. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's effective. Okay.
I don't. But
I was going to say,
I love about teaching.
It would surprise me if you did.
No, mine doesn't stay the same 2 years in a row. Just because, I look at it as I'm learning as much as the kids. I really, truly am every year. And if I'm not doing that growth and looking at a new way to give it to them, it's not fun for me. It's kind of boring. This is what keeps me involved. And rather just, I've done this 90 times.
We touched on this a little bit when you were on before. You didn't get into teaching because you got your summers off.
Well, sort of. No, you're right. No, right.
Trevor, you elementary school speech pathologist.
Yes.
Okay, so for whatever reason, when I hear that, it seems very specific and niche. But you say you're at a specific school, so you don't travel. You don't move from school to school.
Correct. Although I have a pretty unique situation. I mean, some people do have one school, but most people are at 2 and some are at 3. So
gotcha. But it's still, but even the ones that's the thing is, it seems like, again, a niche thing, so is your school specifically give me a kind of outline of speech pathology and what it really means as far as an educator goes, because I have to admit, I don't really get it specifically.
Right. So it's under the umbrella of special education.
Right.
So special education, there's, numerous eligibilities, hearing impairment, autism, communication disorder. And communication disorder and autism, that's kind of the realm I live in. Okay. So if they have autism, then they automatically have difficulties with social language inherent, in the, in their that's like one of the symptoms. So they don't need an extra diagnosis. But a lot of kids that come in from pre-K, you know, their language delayed, their speech, like the way they talk is delayed. They may have a lisp. Very few, like a couple stutter, but mostly it's, you know, they're behind in language, behind articulation. We're not really sure if it's really a disorder, but they qualify.
Right.
So
now, do you approach it? Do you approach it the same way? Because when you say you're not sure it's a disorder versus just kind of a, you know, like a slower learning curve, or even just a, you know, a specific physiological thing. I mean, is there a difference? Do you approach it all the same way? Is the therapy the same? I wouldn't be sure.
Yeah, you know, like, I mean, depending on what it is, I mean, you know, the assessment's super important, but oftentimes whether we call it a delay or whether it's like a, you know, true disorder, like you would treat it the same way. But the thing is, you know, we're at Boise, we're very like cognizant of, especially these days, making sure that the percentage of like Black students or white students we identify fits kind of like what's happening like nationally. Because kids with because, you know, Black kids and white kids, there's not one population that has autism more than the other. But depending on their like culture, they may get over or under identified.
I got you. Based on accessibility to people that can even make the call. Right.
Yeah. So basically, you know, typical year. So K through 5 this year, online or in person. I have about 55 students, you know, from K through 5. Some they can't say their S. Some just don't really understand vocabulary. Some can't tell a story. Some have autism. About 20% autism, 20% articulation, 50%. Who knows, general kind of language difficulties.
Right. Now, are they grouped together, or do you have different stages for each grade level?
Yeah, so it's really up to the SLP or the speech pathologist. So you kind of create your own individual sessions or groups, but it's all during the day. So
gotcha.
You have to pull them from general education.
That's where I come in, Scott. I get the call. Could you send
the call? Can you send them down
to my office?
Mr. Strang would like Jimmy.
I always go in and just disrupt the classroom and get
him out. Come on down.
There you go. Yeah. No warning.
Here's Johnny.
It's better for the children if they don't have time to prepare.
Yeah.
well, you said online and in person. You know, Mike and I talked a little bit last year when we were kind of locked down and every school district was, and Mike, we'll get to the fact that you're back full time now, aren't you?
Right.
Essentially.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, Trevor, paint for me a picture of how different things were, or whether or not things changed a lot for you. Give me a sense of how this year's has altered things, if at all.
All right. Well, so in general, like not speaking to the speech pathologist, just speaking to someone from a elementary school. You know, we started last March. That's when we started distance learning, when the whole COVID kind of.
Right. Now, had you guys done that before? Were you prepared for it, or was it a whole new thing?
Whole new thing. Like we went back, we went home thinking, all right, I'll see you in a couple of days. And here we are right now. So, you know.
No, I think a lot of people thought that. A lot of people thought a month, maybe.
Right. And judging by people I see in public right now, you know, maybe they think that, you know, everything's great and fine now. But, you know, we know what's up. But, yeah, so I'd say that I thought this summer was going to be like a big turning point. And, all right, they have the whole summer. It's a Portland Public Schools. It's a big district. You know, they've got other districts doing the same thing. They're going to talk. They're going to get it figured out, you know. But, you know, of course.
Didn't quite go that way.
No, I mean, you know, I'm sure they were doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, not behind the scenes. But, you know, parents probably have this perception of, well, a whole summer passed. We did this. That didn't work. So now it's going to be, you know, we're going to get it. But, you know.
I mean, was it cut and dry? I mean, Mike, I don't want to speak for you, obviously, but for Cincinnati Public Schools, I mean, I think there was a lot of the same perception that summer was going to be the breaking point. We were going to be on top of things. The numbers were going to drop drastically. The seasonal adjustment or whatever they kept calling it. But the thing that struck me the most is, even with that being the popular perception and it not happening that way, obviously that we had a big explosion over the course of the summer, et cetera, but we the plans for Cincinnati Public Schools were chaotic right out of the gate.
Okay,
Like there was a couple of opportunities for them to lay out contingencies, and instead they just kind of made open declarations of plans that they just kept changing every few weeks, even up until when school started.
Yeah.
In fact, we just found out a couple of weeks ago that Cincinnati Public is staying on a virtual platform for now.
Went back to, because Ohio went back to red.
Right. Ohio as a state. So that brings me to you, Mike. So, but you guys are still, I mean, do you guys even have a virtual contingency plan? And if so, what triggers it? And are you comfortable?
So we are okay. So our district this summer came up.
Sit back.
Yeah. Let's breathe. Now, our district, I think, handled it really well as far as they said, we're going to go with the color-coded system. So if we're red, we're going to be blended. If we're purple, we're going to be totally, and this is by county. And if we're purple, we're totally, online.
For the record, Trevor, purple's apparently worse than red.
Purple's worse. Purple's worse. Yeah. And then if we were orange, we would,
which isn't as bad as red.
Right. That would be full time. That would be full time. So, and
remember in summer it had to be green before school even opened at all. And then it had to stay, and it had to stay yellow for school to remain open. And then they changed it. We're like, well, orange will be okay. And then they said, well, organized sports will be okay. And then they said, let's put another color in there.
Right. No, that's how it feels. Because when we started, it was not so we were on orange when it started. So a week before, we all thought we were going to go back blended. And then about a week before school started, thereabouts, we went to orange, which meant we could go back full time. Right. And I appreciate the school district. They pretty much said, no, we're going to go back blended just to get the kids started. And we'll do that for a month. They didn't do
the full time. They took the half.
It was like half and half.
Yeah.
Half and half.
That's what blended means, right?
Blended means, I see one group of kids Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, I'm there by myself. Thursday, Friday's my second group of kids. So literally, I don't see a kid for 5 days, which is kind of tough. But we did that for the first month. And you don't really get anywhere. And it stayed on orange. So September 21st or thereabouts, they brought us all back, said you guys are going full in.
Full in, all in, everybody.
Yeah, and it's not that bad because essentially instead of 32 kids a class, some people are doing virtual. They opted out totally. And
they have that option.
Virtual, and they have that option.
And so you have a laptop in your class so they can see what's happening?
I don't have to do that. Nope.
No?
Nope. So virtual, as far as most schools are doing it, the individual classroom teachers are not, it's not like it was in the spring. It is handled.
Then how are they? It's handled
how are they doing that?
Yeah.
Different teachers. So I'm high risk. So I'm high risk, and they offered the job to me. What they said was, "Hey, Mike," which was I was very appreciative of it. They said, "Listen, we'll put you in a room. You have to come into school, but you won't be around students, and you will deal with social studies."
So you're doing this now?
No, I didn't accept that job. No, because honestly, and it's what we were speaking about before. Online is different than teaching, and when we have to do it, it's something it's hard. It is hard. You're chasing kids. Essentially, the hard part is not making the assignments. It's not grading the assignments. The hard is that 5 to 10% that you can't find. And
you can't
you're
engage
responsible for
in any way, shape, or form.
And you're like, hey, you haven't done the last 3 assignments. Tell me what's going on, or the IEP students that might have trouble.
See, that's the thing. Now, let's hold that thought. Right. So, really quick, just to recap, so I understand, you are back full time now, or you're back blended now.
So right now, I am back full time. I took that position to stay in the class. We came back full time.
But I mean, your school, your students is it blended or is it full?
Full time till next week. No, really, I'm being serious because we went back to red.
Okay. Okay. So they did make the call, but it's not going to take effect until Monday.
Well, the call will be made tomorrow.
Okay.
But that's all of our guests.
Now, just to get a sense, because it sounds like Oak Hills and CPS were kind of the same juggling act. So just to kind of get a sense, so Trevor, you go virtual last year. You think it's going to be short. You think summer's going to change anything. Did you have the same clusterfuck, for lack of a better term, when school started this year?
Yeah, so I'm always like trying to anticipate. I go through all the situations in my head, like, oh, what's going to go wrong because of this?
Right.
And then, so typically they do happen, but because I've thought about them so much, then, I'm so sick of thinking about them that I just, do what I was doing anyways. No, yeah, I did plan a little bit to get ahead of things, but then of course, they would throw a wrench in things. So I think my struggle is it's not coming up with lessons. It's not, being there. Cause I've got a blue Yeti with like in my office, a blue Yeti with a boom arm. I've got a, 1080p webcam. I've got like noise canceling.
So you're ready for you're ready to do people in person and blast it at the same time.
Right. But I have a family with 2 kids that I work with, new kids that I haven't seen yet because we've scheduled a session. They've been able to log on to Zoom. My connection's great, but they have 9 kids in the household. They have their own internet, but they have 2 hotspots provided by the school.
Right.
But, they're busy. They don't have time to like even react to a message I sent them about, the password for this is like, that's already, it's already over their head.
Right. So, something that simple. So you can't even get out of the starting gate. Well, I mean, see, that was kind of, my wife and I, we didn't want our kids going. we just didn't. We were just like,
scary.
We want to work it out so that, but at the same time, we understood the push to have them back in. And, and part of us kind of resented the idea that there were people pushing to get their kids back in so they had more free time.
Sure.
But
which was a lot of it.
Which was it was a measurable percentage. But the thing is this, you said 10 to 15%. Trevor, I don't know do you think you're looking at the same thing? 10 to 15% attrition loss through virtual learning, or do you think it's worse than that?
So I have to, take data on every session I have. So I've come up with like a Google form.
I don't know why that didn't surprise me.
So just about 52.7% of my students have been absent sessions, but I feel like 50% is pretty good.
Really? Okay.
Out of those 50%, I think 90% of the time 50% of the time it's been because of technical difficulties where they've been trying, then they just give up.
Right.
50% just, you don't like, no explanation. And then like a week later, you're going to text like nothing's happened. Like, hey, is speech on for today? So
correct me if I'm wrong though.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. But they're looking at you, obviously a need that they have, but probably looking at it as you, hey, I'm not getting a grade in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree? So my question is,
like, they don't really care about grades, I guess, at elementary school.
Right.
Oh, that's true. You're right. I wasn't thinking of that. Right.
But I guess it's more, I'm seen as kind of I'm a related service, but I don't know, even during in school, it's not like they view me as, sometimes I don't even really understand what I am, because speech pathology is it's still fairly new and, speech teacher, speech path, speech.
Maybe not viewed as essential though.
Well, that was my point, is priority as far as they're going. I mean, even though we all know it is a high priority, but I'm talking in their minds.
Exactly.
Maybe not.
It's not there, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Trevor.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and I was just going to add, most of the kids that don't show up for me, they just haven't shown up at all. So it's not just obvious it wouldn't show up.
You're not going to get it.
And that's the point I was going to. And I kind of wish I might try and have like some child psychologists on here, because there was at least some percentage of people that were saying, and this was even before we were talking about the 10 to 15% loss from technology or whatever. But they were saying that there's this, this psychological damage being done by these kids not being able to socialize the way they normally would.
Let's get into that.
Well, I mean, the thing is I would, my kids, and I don't, maybe it's a reflection of terrible parenting, whatever the case might be, but my kids have had, friends, obviously, growing up that they hang out with, but they have a wider circle of friends that are digital anyway.
Right.
I mean, Fievel's interactions when, on a rainy day, he's playing video games down here. He's playing video games with kids all over the country, some of which on a repeated basis. And he's playing video games with kids that he doesn't necessarily hang out with in school, but he knows them.
That's my thing. Honestly, I think it was just an excuse. Sure, is it hard on some kids? I get that. Yeah, it's a change. But is it something that they can get over, like you said, online? We have so much technology. It's not the same as it would have been 20 years ago when we were there, where you might have really been isolated, and then you might have had to really talk to somebody. I really think that's kind of a cop-out and an excuse. Like, I'm looking at my kids and well, then what are you doing with your kids?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, then what do they do? I don't want to homeschool them, God damn it.
Right. Well, then what's going on? I mean, and also I think the thing that with all these things as a teacher and a parent, we got to remember sometimes school is not a natural environment. It's not a natural environment for humans. It's not like we're taking us out of a natural environment that's going to create. I'm just talking about what I guess I might have. I just see parents because I follow, school webs, comment pages and all this stuff, and I see their arguments.
Industry and
they are and maybe the small ones. I get it when I'm saying to my dad, same thing, man. My kids really want to go back to school. They did want to go back to school, so I'm not making light heart of it. But I see arguments. I see arguments over the top that are just saying, "Oh, the mental state of my kids, and it's because of this. You guys are killing them." And
right. But that's the thing. It's a little overblown. But who are we to say, what the influence is or isn't? That's why I would say it'd be cool to have a child psychologist on here. I don't know. And another point you made before, Mike, that I wanted to touch on, and I appreciated Trevor kind of countering it already, which was when they were saying that we were going to be going back with a blended thing here at CPS. We weren't really even comfortable with that because when they were announcing that was when they were having the huge explosion in July, and we're just like, this is nuts. And then they told us that if you didn't want to send your kids back, you could disenroll from CPS and enroll in this online academy thing that was state accredited or some nonsense.
Yeah.
And
Which I can't believe they would do that. Why would they? Because that loses funding for CPS. I don't understand why they would push you.
I don't. I mean, maybe at this point they were writing the losses off. I don't know. But the thing is we've struggled for 5 years, struggled mightily for 5 years for my son to get a diploma from Walnut Hills High School.
Sure.
And to have it be not even an option versus just sending him to school. I mean, we were fucking pissed about that.
So he's a senior.
He's a senior, yeah. And so we
just
were
for the audience too. Did you go to Walnut?
Trevor, did you go to Walnut Hills?
No,
I did.
No, I know Trevor did.
I got kicked out.
But Ashley did. Ashley, his girlfriend.
She's a graduate.
Ashley went there, right?
Yeah, she's a graduate.
Just bringing and Walnut is a top 10 school in the school in the country for.
I don't know about the country. Public schools. Public schools, it ranks pretty high. I'm going to
look it up. I'm going to Google it.
Top 10. You Google it.
You two talk. Talk.
Ask Jeeves. I don't know.
No, but the thing was, see, that was the whole thing is, and Mike, you said you testified that it was a big pain in the ass. But I just thought to myself, why can't they just put a webcam up in the classroom and then put it on the onus is on the kids again. You got to pay attention. You got to take notes, blah, 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 blah. And then, just give the option one way or the other. And the argument against that was the same argument about not virtual in the first place, which brings me back full circle to this 10 to 15% of the kids that we're losing. And it's just like, I don't know, if we had the proper funding, we could have chased all those kids down. You could chase these kids down. I mean, obviously you can't change every individual student's home situation, be it financial, emotional.
Scott, no, I agree with you 100%. No. I agree. So don't take my argument wrong about what I was saying. If it's blended,
your lazy ass should be up there doing the web.
If we would have continued, if we would have had leadership, any kind of leadership, the problem is our government and our national leader put it on the shoulders of the schools and said, "You deal with the parents."
Well, he put it on the shoulders.
That's the problem.
He put it on the shoulders of the governors, is what he did.
The governors. Then the governors threw it up in the air, and it should be the governor because schools are state legislated.
Yeah, state boards.
So the governor then, after the protests about masks and opening up my barbershops, he gave up, and in the spring he was tough. In the spring he said, "I'm closing all schools."
He was great.
All schools have to do this.
He did the right shit right out of the gate. At least initially.
And so when he gave up, when our Amy Acton had to quit and he crumbled and he said, schools can decide for themselves. Bullshit. You knew what he was doing and schools did their best. And it's a mess.
Trevor,
if he would have just closed it. But
is
if you
this
would have
true in
closed
Oregon
them,
too? They capitulated to that vocal minority we were talking about before, about how the kids have to go back to school because we need our lives back. And then they tried to couch it as we need to work, or we can't homeschool, or whatever the case. Was it, I mean, Trevor, did you have the same forces at work out there? Was the small vocal minority pushing for full attendance?
I mean, you know, there was always that talk. And recently, I think 2 days ago, like over the weekend, yeah, they had a rally, or on Monday, they had a rally for parents and teachers who wanted to reopen schools.
Right.
But I think I could have counted the people on my hand that were there when I saw the picture. But yeah, I mean, you know, there's plenty of people. I keep my finger on the pulse of like the local news station Facebook page,
Sure.
for better or worse.
To at least see what the hell they're saying.
Right. You know, so maybe I am a libtard. But anyway, yeah.
We probably all are by the strictest definition.
Sure.
So I just found out today, you know, behind everyone else, that our Portland Public Schools, we're going to stay distance learning at least till January 28th.
And now, whose decision is that, Trevor, out there? Is it your district or is it state?
State or the board?
Yeah, state or your school board.
See, that's the thing is, it's Ohio, it's the boards, individual boards, because clearly OKLs and CPS. Sorry, you were saying Portland.
I'm pretty sure it's just our individual school board.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, because there was another school that made the decision prior to us, but it feels like, you know, that parents find out things before the teachers do. They'll find out some big
social media rumor mill. Yeah.
Yeah, and then suddenly, like in the message boards or like, you know, the groups, people will be saying, "Hey, did you hear that this happened? Like, why didn't we hear about this before?" So I try to stay out of those kind of echo chambers of just discontent. But
the actual staff, is this true?
Yeah, no, that happens. Sure, that happens all the time.
I'm sure Scott, it does.
But Scott, to go back to my point, is if we would, if it would have stayed consistent, if the state would have maintained control.
You could say this about anything that happened.
But I'm saying if the state would have maintained control, what you said before is, if we didn't have a choice, if we would have maintained all being online, it would have been. Parents would have had all summer to make arrangements. Mm-hmm. It would have been the same thing.
Yeah, if they told us the plan.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And you said, hey, we're going to go online through fall or through winter. You know, we'll come back in January. Mm-hmm. We would not have this mess on, off, blended, whatever. And every teacher would have been prepared and ready to go for that with that.
Right.
The problem is when you're blended, you're not, and that's where the issue comes in.
But yeah, but again, you could extrapolate that circumstance to almost everything that's happened nationwide since March about a lack of coherent decision making. Mm-hmm. And and it just kind of trickles down to everything we all got to deal with. But yeah, I mean, even if the decision had been fuck it, we're going back, it would have given people an opportunity. But the thing was nobody could say that without having a contingency plan for when it blew up in their face, which it did in some districts here, you know? So I don't know. So you're all virtual, Trev?
Yep. I am going into my building though. So we're allowed in our building.
Yeah, but you got your Yeti mic and
exactly. I've got my widescreen computer. I've got like lighting set up, you know.
Yeah.
I usually look better than this. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just easier. And, you know, I just go there. I don't have to worry about privacy and, you know, because I tend to talk pretty loud when I have headphones on. I'm still learning to modulate my voice.
Right.
But yeah, it's just a little easier, especially with two people working at home during the spring. That felt a little, you know, difficult. So
yeah, we have our moments here with everybody here all the time. Mm-hmm. But it's worked out pretty well for the most part. I mean, you know, I don't know.
I'll tell you, as much as I you know, perfect world would have been remote, like you said, kind of with my kids and going everything. But I'm so glad to be back too.
Yeah, I mean,
our mental state goes.
I fought to work from home because I've got, you know, I work a phone sales job. I can do it anywhere. Right. I do it right here. In fact, you guys are looking at this beautiful office. But you know, and then because I was the only salesperson that's here at Cincinnati at company headquarters, there was kind of an expectation for me to go in. And so initially I was thrilled. And every once in a while I kind of miss having to just get up and go somewhere, you know. Right. I think sometimes it's been a real blessing to have a job in any capacity just to maintain a schedule. I think it's really important for people to have a regular routine to avoid. I mean, I would probably turn into a complete drunken degenerate without it. Congratulations, boys. By the way, this is the first panel I've done since I started it where I'm not drinking.
Why not? Why is that?
It's late. It's a school night. I was tired anyway. I was afraid to put me over the deep end.
Yeah. I started watching the debate, so I had to.
Did you actually watch? Let's go ahead and talk about that for a little bit. I didn't watch it.
Trevor, did you? Ashley said she was watching it because we were on the phone.
Yeah, we were really paying attention to who went over the time, by how much, all that kind of.
It was ridiculous. I'll tell you, Scott. I watched 15 minutes of it, and I had to turn it off again. Same with the other one, but.
I walked through the room a couple. I watched the whole other one. It was like a slow motion train.
Oh,
wreck.
I couldn't do that. Yeah.
I couldn't. Well, at some point, I got to the point where I said I just have to finish. Even though I wanted to turn it off.
Just to say you did it, right?
Yeah.
No,
I walked through the room a couple times. It seemed a lot calmer.
This one was bad. I mean, this was Pence's. Pence acts similar to Trump in that. He would not, the moderator kept saying, "Hey, stop," and he wouldn't listen to her. He just kept going on. It
goes back to the internet learning thing. Why don't they just put kill switch on their mics?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Dunk tank.
Yeah, dunk tank. Yeah, dunk them.
The dunk tank's the best. I would give any. I mean, unfortunately, we've reached a point in American history where that kind of showman politics might not be far. It might not be long before.
People will love it.
Are going up. Yeah, they would love it.
They will love it. They will eat it up.
American Gladiator competitions.
She was eating them up, and I'm not just saying that because I'm not a huge fan of hers, obvious, but she ate them up as far as I'm concerned for the time that I watched. And
right. Well, the liberal media will say so.
She did. Trevor, did you watch it?
She showed liberal composure. She showed restraint. But she still got a lot of looks like,
she got look. Yes, she handled him, and that was only the short. And that's all I wanted to see that. And honestly, when I ended it, because, like I said, he was doing the same stuff. And then one of the things he would do is every time he got asked a question, he would come back like, "Just thank you for let me answer this." And the American people are strong people. I mean, it was like the first 30 to 40 seconds were all the same. It's like, whoa, you really have nothing to say. You really can't answer this.
That was the thing is Pence. I've seen him interviewed a couple of times, and thank whatever gods that be. It's only been a couple of times, but I got to give him credit for being an automaton. He has an uncanny ability. Yeah, he has the uncanny ability of not answering questions. He could take any, and he could take it and walk it all the way around. Which, I mean, I know it's a politician's thing, and I've seen a million of them do it over my life. But he's pretty fucking good at not answering the question.
But I think tonight was different. I think that I think it really showed tonight.
Well,
we'll see.
I'll say the same thing I said about the last debate, and it's just I don't think these are going to make any difference to the voters' decision-making process. I think no matter what happens,
good for Harris. I don't think the American people know Harris, and especially the right. And to see her speak,
but I think
honestly, they're going to be impressed. I mean, of course, they're going to be closed-minded and whatever. But I think overall,
I was going to say. I think
overall they might. I don't know. They might be. Whoa.
If I thought there were still rational conservative viewpoints anywhere in the country, then I would consider this a distinct possibility. Trevor, Mike, and I are kind of trading concepts. Let me see what you think of this. Mike had suggested a friend of ours to be on here, and this friend of ours is like this kind of like just trumpet. Okay. How we just say trumpet? That works, right?
Yeah.
How come nobody's doing that? But so I said I've been considering, as we approach the election and kind of, I don't know if my show's kind of stagnated. I haven't done a lot of them, even though there's a lot to talk about still. But I was thinking about having people with, who supported Trump on and see if I could have a rational discussion as to why.
Do it.
I don't think it's possible.
Don't have.
I hate to say it. What I hope is that someone who's a friend of mine who might see this would say, "I'll come on and talk Trump with you." And but we'd have to make. What do you think? I mean, we'd have to make rules, wouldn't we?
Man, I don't know. I just don't think. I think they just would spout nonsense.
I mean, well, that's the thing is, I think one of the biggest issues that as a nation we need to address is the inability to have civil discourse. We've reached this bizarre point in history where grown people cannot communicate on any kind of fundamental level.
And I'm reading a book right now that you would love, Scott. And
Here we go.
I'm reading it for
Trevor. Have you been on Mike's? He's over here. Have you been on Mike's book club talk show yet? What do you like to read, Trevor?
Well, these days, books about speech pathology, my jam.
Did you say my jam?
Yeah.
I used to read a whole lot more, but I'm not gonna lie, I haven't read a bunch lately. But I like to read.
Who do you like?
A lot of nonfiction, fiction. That's everything.
Do you have a favorite author? Or
I'm really terrible. Like
I was gonna say, I'll have you. Definitely would have you. Yeah. I'd love to, but there's a book I'm reading right now called Merchants of Doubt. Have you heard of that, Scott? It's right up your alley, man.
Yeah.
So essentially, and it's reading.
Do you mean fatalistic cynicism?
It's these guys that these guys nihilists. These guys that literally took they for the tobacco industry, they created fake. They really created that. Hey, if you could just create a conversation over something that is pretty much a science that is pretty concrete. Obviously, no science is concrete, but is accepted,
widely accepted,
widely accepted, and you create just a question to it. And then they have the freedom doctrine that was 1949 that media put out that says, hey, you have to cover both sides of any political issue. And so these guys realized that, hey, these aren't political issues, but they went to the media and then said, hey, we're going to counter that cigarettes cause cancer. Freedom doctrine, you got to let us have our side. And media freaking rolled over. And then the book is telling me about it's with the nuclear Star Wars agenda. And hey, the same dudes were up there like, hey, you got your side, but we get to state our side. And the media rolled over. So we got to this point. And it went through tobacco, it went through acid rain, it went through all these major things, and it started in the 70s that really created this atmosphere that we have. When you and I had
this atmosphere of ignorance and selfishness was created by a doctrine based on coverage in the media?
By fairness doctrine. The fairness doctrine that allowed saying that there are two sides to every story. When honestly,
where's Roger Ailes? Yeah, that's right.
But it's interesting because this is the conversation we had on our TBC episode, and this was really not part of the conversation. And I'm reading this book, and man, it's amazing that this was not brought in by him. I'm saying it's part of the puzzle.
Well, here's the thing: you have to post this episode of panel on the TBC channel now because
of course I will.
It's an adjunct. No, it's an addendum.
Hey, and you got to discuss on one of these.
Yeah,
is voter suppression. That's my game. That's mine. Next
time.
Now.
Listen, I'm getting cut off. Thank you guys very much, Mike. As always, Mike's like my Marv Albert. Oh, if it wasn't for Billy Catfish, you'd be my fill-in every time. Trevor, thanks so much, you guys. I'm going to post this in just a couple of minutes. Yeah, awesome. Hey, Trevor, you're going to have to come back on another time, okay?
Yeah, definitely. I really loved it. So
hey, you guys keep fighting the good fight, man. Out there teaching people. It's one of the most thankless and most important jobs in the fucking world.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
See you, bro.
Yeah, you too.
Take care.